Good morning and happy Sabbath, everyone. Probably wondering why I've been up here just waiting for to talk. My name is Ayen, and I have the privilege today to share my testimony to you all with how God has been with me throughout my life, even during times when I don't know it. I'm 28 years old from Sydney, and even though I am young-ish, God has done so many wonders in my life throughout my career, my relationships, and just life in general. So a bit of background about my family and I. We were raised Catholic, and then one day God touched my dad's heart, bless his soul, and he converted to us to the Seventh-day Adventist faith when I was just 8 years old. I was so young, but I remember it so clearly because one day we were eating pork and prawn, and the next day I wasn't allowed to have my bacon for breakfast. So from a young age, I always knew God, but I still believe that there's a difference with knowing there is a God and having a relationship to know God. I'll start off with my career. Myself, I'm currently a registered nurse. I work in surgery at Westmead Hospital up in Sydney, and I'm also a nursing officer in the Royal Australian Air Force. My journey to this point has been a whirlwind with God on my side. So there's a funny backstory to how I got into the Air Force. Back when I was 17 years old, I applied to the Australian Defence Force Academy, or ADFA, which is basically the military university where you get paid to study and you have a job afterwards in the Defence Force. Now, if you know me, my personality is quite gentle and more on the reserved side, and I'm more fit to be a nurse. But they didn't have a nursing option in ADFA. So my parents tell me to go for something on the other end of the spectrum, which is air traffic control. And if you guys know anything about air traffic control, it is probably one of the most hardest jobs in the world, trying to make sure planes don't crash into each other. And apparently one of the highest suicide rates. I don't know what my parents were thinking. So anyway, I go for the interviews. I make it to the very last step, which is a big interview with a panel of 3 very senior members of the Defence Force. They could see in my face that I was not really passionate about being an air traffic control officer. They asked me what my plan B was if I didn't get in, and I said nursing. And they thought that was a better fit for me, so they didn't let me pass. And obviously, I was devastated, but not because I didn't get into ADFA, but because I was more afraid of disappointing my parents. But yeah, I was never really passionate about air traffic controlling. And at 17 years old, I asked God, why did you let this happen to me? Why can't I get in? Fast forward to last year, 2024. So I've been a nurse for 7 years now, gained a lot of experience at Westmead, in surgery, being a scrub scout nurse. I finished my master's in health leadership and management. I finished my graduate certificate in theater nursing, and I became advanced life support certified. I'm pretty comfortable where I am, but I wanted more excitement and still to expand my career after all that. My dad, who's also in the Defence Force, he asked me if I wanted to try again and apply for the Defence Force as a reservist, meaning you work for the Defence Force but on a part-time or casual basis. And I said, why not? I'll give it a shot again. And it turns out the Air Force was looking to build their surgical capability, and there was a massive recruiting drive. All of my experience and qualifications that I gained were just what the Air Force needed to build their surgical capability. And I passed all of the interviews, I wouldn't say easily, but much easier than before. Once I got appointed to the Royal Australian Air Force, I really felt that God used my little setback 10 years ago to get me where I am now. If I hadn't been rejected back then and gone to nursing, I wouldn't be where I am at my career today. And I absolutely love where I am today. I get to experience a fun, exciting job at Westmead Hospital, at one of Sydney's biggest trauma hospitals, where every day is different. Everything you see in the news, they come to me. As well as serving as a nursing officer in the Air Force. Romans 8:28, this is my dad's favorite Bible verse. For all things work together for good for those who love God. And I know I love God, so God used my setbacks and turned it into good, a thriving career for me. All right, now to the good stuff, relationships. Considering it is mostly women in this room, which I absolutely love and adore, I love being here. I'm sure you all can relate to having some crazy, interesting relationship problems in your lives. I have definitely had my fair share. Just a bit over a month ago, I was supposed to be married to someone who I thought God had planned for me. I called off the wedding 2 weeks before my wedding day. We were together for 6.5 years, and we were engaged for 1.5 years. Now, when we met, I straight away thought he was the one for me. Like, it's all in or nothing. I'm committed. With all the 3 boyfriends that I've had in my life, I'm always like that. I'm always committed to them, and I always think straight away, yep, I can change him. I can make him a better Christian. I can turn to Jesus. Spoiler alert, no, we can't. I know it probably happens to maybe 2% of women where they can turn their husbands or boyfriends to Jesus, but most of the time it's quite hard. And I don't know about you, but me naturally, I want to follow my partner, my husband or my boyfriend, because that's how God designed it. So with my most recent relationship, it was probably the most toxic relationship I had out of all the 3. I mean, my first high school boyfriend was toxic too, but I mean, you're high school, so you're guaranteed to have a bit of toxicity because your frontal lobe has not been developed yet. So yeah, my recent relationship was quite toxic. And when you're in the relationship, you don't see that. And I know some women in this room can relate to that. In just our first year of dating, he picked me up from the house to go out with some friends. But the whole car ride, he was giving me the silent treatment. And I kept asking, what's wrong? And just still nothing. I kept asking until one time he snapped. He started yelling at me. And then eventually he kicked me out of the car, and I was forced to go out of the side of a busy main road. And you think, there's no way Ayen would take him back after that, right? Wrong. There were a few instances like this when he'd do something wrong to me and then say sorry, and then beg me to forgive him, and then we'll be happy again. It was a vicious cycle, but I still thought he was the one given to me by God. Early last year, we had a fight, and it's funny, I can't even remember what about, but we had some sort of fight and then it ended up, he didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. No contact whatsoever, even though I begged and begged him to contact and talk to me. And in these 2 weeks, I found my relationship with God. I always thought I had a relationship with God my whole life, but in those 2 weeks, I really started to read my Bible. Like, I'm not just memorizing Bible verses that I'm Googling on the internet. I even buy myself a Bible, you know, the ones that many of you have, the ones with a little space on the side where you can write notes. And for the first time in my life, I started listening to Christian podcasts. And for the first time, I'm going to Bible study more in my youth cell group that I haven't gone to in forever. And so in those 2 weeks, I finally established a relationship with God. Yes, it was painful to not have the love of your life talk to you, but having that relationship with God put me at ease and made me feel that whatever happens, it's all part of God's will. So then guess what? The cycle continues, and then we make up again, and we were happy again. Yay. A month later, we take a trip to Canada, and he proposes to me. And I said yes. And I thought, oh, this is finally the breakthrough that God is giving me in this relationship. I thought finally he's changing him and he's going to be a better person. And let me tell you right now, if you are in a toxic relationship where you are questioning your self-worth, you're questioning every day whether or not he loves you, he is not the man that God has in store for you. So we're engaged and everything is happy, and we're planning the wedding. Our wedding was supposed to be a big one, with 230 people coming. I know some cultures that's not big, but in my culture, that's pretty big. Then comes July of this year. I won't go into details, but something happens with him, the third party, and it just changes the atmosphere of our relationship. The last 2 months of our relationship was the most distant I have felt in the entirety of our relationship. We were barely communicating properly, no hugging, no kissing, or any kind of affection, which is crazy because you would think leading up to a wedding is the most exciting time of your lives. Like, yeah, there may be some stresses or even cold feet, but you shouldn't feel disconnected to your partner. But this was just pure disconnect. I have never felt more disconnected to someone I thought I was close to than during the last 2 months of our relationship. It was like we barely knew each other. And of course, I was crying almost every day, and I was praying to God, a prayer that I think a lot of women are scared to pray, which is, God, if he is not for me, please just take him away. I can't handle this anymore. And I also prayed, God, if he is for me, please help us to be better and love each other better and have a happy marriage. I think God ignored that one. So, the last 2 months, we went on and still planned the wedding. But until about 3 weeks out from the wedding, I had my bridal shower, and we were still so disconnected. And when you have a bridal shower, the groom surprises the bride with flowers, even though the mom or the bride herself tells the groom to do it. So he does that. He gets me this massive bouquet, and he even does a speech for me. But I could feel it wasn't genuine, it was fake, and we were just both pretending to be happy in front of everyone, in front of our parents, our families, and friends. But I couldn't take the pretending anymore. And no one really knew, except for my mom, because she's my best friend. She's sitting over there. No one really knew that him and I were rocky, except for my mom, in the last 2 months. So after my bridal shower, I decided to talk to him because I just couldn't take it anymore. I asked him, why are we still so disconnected and unhappy with each other when we're supposed to get married in 3 weeks? And he says, I don't know. And in this conversation, he's not really saying much, and I just get more upset and just more frustrated. So I asked him 3 very important questions. I first asked, do you think we can work this out? And he says, I don't know. Then I asked him, well, do you still want to marry me? And he says, I don't know. Then I asked one very crucial question, which is, do you still love me? And he says, I don't know. And then that was my breaking point, and I just left. And that was probably one of the most hardest things I ever heard. The person that you're supposed to marry in 3 weeks, unsure whether or not he loves you or wants to marry you. After that, I was pretty much, I'm going to say 95% convinced that I didn't want to get married to him anymore. But of course, a few days later, he asked to talk to me so we can talk things through. But before I go, my mom, she gave me really good advice. And she said, again, just pray before you go. Ask God to give you strength during this time. And so I did. My prayer was, God, if he is for me, please let us work through things. And if he is not, please give me the strength to let him go. And that was very important because in the past, with our vicious cycle, I just never had the strength and courage to let him go. And after I prayed, before I left, I said, I just need to read something from my Bible. I just need some words of encouragement from my Bible before I go and talk to him. So I opened up my Bible, and I wasn't even trying to look for anything. I just went, I need some words of encouragement. And I opened up my Bible randomly, and I cannot make this up. I opened it, and it went straight to Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope in the future. And I just started bawling my eyes out because, not of sadness, but of relief, because I know whatever happens in my conversation with him, I know I'll be fine because God has a better plan for me. So I go and meet him, and we try to talk things out. We were saying what we needed and wanted from each other. What I said, the first thing I said was, I want us to have a relationship with God, both together and separately. And mind you, when I asked this, I didn't really think it would be a problem because he told me in the past that we could have a relationship with God. But anyway, he asked me, okay, what does having a relationship with God look like for you? And I was surprised because I told him many times before, but anyway, men don't listen. So I said, praying together, reading the Bible together, and going to church together. And then he said, well, I don't agree with that. And in that moment, I just felt a power coming over me, and it was as if God was telling me, my daughter, you need to let him go. He is not the one for you. And that was my answer, to be 100% certain that he was not for me. After all that time, I needed that to really tell me that he was not for me. There was a big pause in our conversation, and then he asked, well, is that a deal breaker for you? And I said, unfortunately, yes. And then we went our separate ways, and then I called off the wedding 2.5 weeks before my wedding day. And of course, in that moment, I was heartbroken, devastated, upset, confused, all of the above. But I truly believe what happened to me in that relationship had to happen the way it did. So afterwards, once I came out of the relationship, I could see my worth and value and what God has planned for me in the future. Building that relationship with God last year definitely helped me to be okay and have trust in God once I got out of the relationship. God definitely used my situation to remind me how, like all of us in this room, that I am a daughter of God. Our God, He is such a girl dad. I hope you guys know what that means. God loves His daughters so much, and we are His precious princesses. We don't need to chase love or attention because we already have it from God. God designed us to be sought after and not to chase or beg a man to communicate with you or give you the bare minimum. In the Bible, we see the men of the Bible being corrected, but the women are comforted. He hears the prayers and cries from Hannah, Leah, and Esther, and many more women in the Bible. So I hope what you can take away from my testimony today is that God loves His daughters so much, and He has great plans for us, whether it is in your careers or your romantic relationships or just life in general. We are so precious in the eyes of God that we do not deserve the bare minimum. In fact, we deserve way more. We deserve the love and care that God gives us every day. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you.
Stand to our feet and get ready to worship.